Welcome to episode 2 of this tutorial series of Carrier Command 2. My name is Daz Tactic. I hope you've been enjoying the content so far. In this one we're going to be planning our mission and doing our initial scout run. So we do the planning, we know which island we're going to go for. Now in reality we're probably better off to go for the, in fact if we just go and click on the holodeck through here, have a bit of a look. We would probably be better off going and getting the fuel, but I think we'll actually go and do this one here because it is a bit closer, just for the sake of this particular series. But the fuel would be vitally important because we will be running out of fuel fairly soon. So we'll go and do Belle Tempest as the island that we're going to be looking at. Now, when I zoom in, I can't see any actual detail. I know that there's a small island there and then a landmass there. I don't know how mountainous it is. I don't know what to expect. So we need to find out what we're actually going to be dealing with. Now, we can see it's due north, but if you're at all unsure, from here you can actually just go and press the E key and just drag up to here. I'm not clicking on anything. That's 13 kilometers away, and it's 355 degrees, basically just due north. So that's the way we will be wanting to actually travel. Now, there's a few little helpers. If I just press escape and then come down the bottom here, we're looking at cartographic mode. There's a wind mode where we can sort of see how strong the wind is blowing. Not all that important to us, really. Precipitation, if there's any rain, which doesn't really worry us. I think it looks pretty clear outside at the moment. Fog in through here, fairly foggy. Like I said, there's a bit of fog sort of drifting through. So we're not going to be. It's not all that clear. So it's a little bit sort of obscured. These next two are the most important. The ocean currents sort of show how our ship is likely to be pushed off course. With the actual ocean currents, and also if we go and click back in here, we can see that we're actually in the shadow of this island for as far as the currents are concerned. And similarly, this one has also got a bit of a shadow as well. Usually when you get into the middle of the map, it's like the islands themselves actually create, and this is, I love that the game models this. So you've got it's fairly it's not, the currents aren't moving anywhere near as strongly back in through there, but that can be quite a valuable one just to get a bit of a feel for the direction of the ship that you're going to be sending it in, because you can be traveling straight to the island and end up over here somewhere because of the currents. So anyway, I'll just press escape and go back out. The last one though is the one I actually prefer, which is ocean depth. And so what this is just gives an indication as to what the depth is underneath these different islands, because you can run aground. You have to be very, very careful that you don't run aground. If you do run aground, you can really severely damage your ship. And so what we want to do is we want to have a bit of a look at this island before we even head off that way. In fact, what we could do is we could send it off. Now, the way that this also then works, it gives you a very, very good indication of just how rough the water is. Now, we've been in very, very sedate waters. This one goes into sort of bluey purples. It doesn't go into this really dark magenta. This is where the waves are massive, and it can be very, very dangerous launching your aircraft from locations like, even in here, this will be fairly big water, fairly big waves. And so, but particularly in here, we don't want to be launching aircraft in that sort of water. So what we'll do is we'll actually just sort of move straight north with our ship, but we'll also then just launch one of the aircraft. So what I'm going to do is I particularly would prefer to be launching in the late afternoon so that I can get a little bit of light and also darkness. Darkness is your best friend for scouting, and you'll see why when we get there, I think. Where are we? If we have a look at the compass. So we've got, this is north, so east. So if it's more over that side of the ship, then it means it's in the morning. If it's more this side, it's going to be in the afternoon. So if we have a look over through this side, and the sun is pretty much noon. It's right above us. All right, so I don't think there's any clock in here. Actually, one thing I didn't show last time is this is your achievements when you do certain things, like down with the ship. If you execute the self-destruct sequence, I didn't show that either. That's under here, but I'll let you figure that one out for yourself as to what goes on with that. You can destroy the ships whenever you feel like it, which is fun, but not in this playthrough. Not in this playthrough. All right, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to, first of all, launch, while we're in nice, secure and calm seas, we're going to actually launch actually we won't do that. We'll get started moving north. So we want to move due north towards that location. So let's just talk a little bit about the helm. So this episode we'll talk about the helm, and also we'll get some ships launched. So if I go and click on the helm in through this side, just make sure that we've got this is completely down. The first thing we need to do, if you see that red button there, is start the engine. So it's now gone to green. So now we can start to move. Now, what I like to do is set each of these up in a particular way, and for yourself, just whatever you find is most helpful. If I go and click on this one's showing me wind, I think. If I go and click on that one, yeah, it's on wind at the moment. Again, I like to see the depth underneath the ships, and I like this one to be a bit further back so I can sort of see, oops, hang on, where are we? Let's go to ocean depth again. So I can sort of see a little bit more around the ship. So, you know, what we're going to be going into in terms of the waves. This just gives you a bit of an indication of the actual waves themselves. This middle one I like to do pretty much the opposite. So I just still go with ocean depth, but I zoom right in so that I can sort of look at in detail when we come up to islands where the safe parts are. We've got to keep out of this yellow reef area, so we've got to avoid that. This one over through here, because ocean currents can be so viable, I do like to, instead of having fog, I like to have ocean currents on that one there. And I like this one because it does show you numerous islands, so it's a long way out. It just gives you a bit of a feel for what to expect from the actual currents themselves. So I've now set up these 3 different screens, that's sort of the way that I like it, but do it yourself, whichever way you want to go. Now we've got a few indicators, like we've got the engine RPM, the engine temperature, and the fuel level. Now we can't see the fuel level all that well from where we are, but we can sort of, the fuel is also back over there. And through this side we've got a few other switches. We've got we've got engine start, engine stop. You've also then got side thrusters, where you can sort of move the ship to the side, or reverse. So you can actually sort of go and so you can sort of strafe a little bit if you need to. Not that it's going to be all that helpful, but the reverse can be useful if you do find yourself in trouble. You can reverse out of a situation. Back over through this side, we've got speed, which is just an indicator, the throttle itself, and there's like a little red bar, and you'll see it up the top there as well. If you go into that red bar, you're really chomping through the fuel. And then we've got the side thrusters in through this side as well, which is just, you know, how the ship is moving from side to side. We'll see when we move off what actually happens with side thrusters and also with the actual main propulsion back up to the top there. If I go and click on that one, the propulsion will sort of show it in the bottom, and the side thrusters will then come off the side. All of these can be pretty much clicked on in through this side. This one again is just the pitch and yaw of the actual aircraft carrier itself, like from side to side and from front to back, depending on the actual the water itself. So again, we don't want to be launching the ships in choppy waters, and we'll get a status back over here down through this side with whatever the ship is, whatever we're trying to do. And the ship will try to make it as safe as possible for landing and also taking off. This is the depth sonar, so we can sort of see that it's very dangerous right behind us, but we're okay in front of us. So we can sort of use this a little bit like using these screens in through this side. All right, down the bottom here we've got a few other little switches. This one is a steering lock. The main heading, I maintain heading, I do like to use a lot when I'm playing solo, because at least the ship will then try to use thrusters to sort of keep it at least pointing in the right direction. We've got navigation lights. These are, and headlights. We can sort of turn the headlights on. Actually I just did, but we're not seeing them much. It's because it's daylight. Actually it's good, by talking it's, I'm now sort of going into the early afternoon or late afternoon. Navigation lights there as well would be turned on probably on the top of the actual ship itself. So that's really what we actually have through there. Actually headlights up and headlights down. Again, we don't really need this. So let's get started. We're going to I'm just going to crank this up a little bit. So we're now going forward. We're not in that red zone, so we're going to be a little bit more careful, and we can then just have a look and see. I'm just going to swing this one around so that we end up pointing and bring that compass so we're heading due north. So we're bringing the ship around. It'll just be at zeros, thereabouts. It won't really matter that much. I'll just move it to say there. So we're now moving slowly at 26 knots towards that other island. And now just flick on that maintain heading, and that's going to try its best to use the thrusters, which we can see there, and the propulsion at the bottom of that little location there. That's also just a compass in through that side. By the way, if the alarm does go off for any reason, you silence it there. So let's now move across and get one of our. We went in the last episode, I think it was. We changed the loadout of these AWACS to then have the air-to-air missiles on board, and we've got also air-to-surface missiles. But we want to use these for scouting where we're actually going. So they've now been set up and ready to go. we'll just go and sit in one of these locations. In fact, what we'll do is we'll just go and send off A1. Now, I'll stand up while we do this so you can see what does go on. The crane status is now wanting to now move the planes into position, and we'll see it in through here as well. Like if I just go across and click on the air area, we will see the plane being moved out and getting it ready to then go onto the actual lift itself. So the plane is right in here. I love this throwback to the 1988 game. It just is so cool. Anyway, we'll press escape from there, and we're now sitting down. We'll just go and stand up. And then eventually when that plane does move across, this will then start to indicate that the elevator will then come up. So this is perfect timing, actually. Actually, we're heading north. It should be east. But it's not Earth then, is it? Because we're heading into night time, which is the perfect time to be doing this sort of mission. And you'll see in a minute why. So those lights that we see way out there in the distance, that's the island, that's the target. And looks like there's a very steep island over there, very steep sort of location. Here comes the plane. I won't bother turning on the lights. Oh, I guess I could. Put that spotlight on. Why not? Make it nice and pretty. And so it will then, these are drones, they just take off automatically. Now, if we're in rough sea, we have to be careful, but we're okay here. So it flies off, and up she goes. Now, it's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to go into this circular pattern ultimately, and just sort of wait for us to do something with it. We'll just go and sit in one of these locations. So I can zoom in on this. Now, I'll just go through what we can do. So it's now left. I'm going to go over to the island a little bit, and we can see that every grid at the moment is 4 kilometres. And really, we want to be about 5 or so, within, certainly more than about 2 kilometres away. We also want our height to be more than 400, maybe about 1.5 kilometres up, so 1,500. That then gets our altitude high. Now I'm going to go and drag from that location, so from that waypoint, I'm going to drag up to about here. So we're going to be high and also out wide. And we're going to go and drag into here. I'm just going to create like a box around this particular location. So like this, and then I'm just going to go and join it back up there, and it will then loop. And so this is going to be a loop. And now if I go back to the albatross, I can then go to the camera. And so we're now flying it from, we're not flying it, but we're actually sitting in the pilot's seat or the drone seat, and that's the island down below us. So I'm going to now go to number 2, which then gives me the gimbal camera. You can see the little indicators at the top there. And if I press R, I'm now in control of this. And now we're up nice and high. You can see the altitude is climbing still. And we're now looking at this particular island. Now there's a runway on the island. That's interesting. I'm going to start to zoom in. Now it's very unstable. If I press the T key, and you can see down the bottom left there like what everything actually is. But if I press T, it's now stabilized. It's not tracking. I'll click it again, and now it's tracking. It's very easy. I want to first of all have a look to see what's inside this hangar. So we'll have a look and see if there's anything there. There's something right there. So we just now keep the track on top of it. And we just get to see there's a lot of lava on this island. Okay, that's a Razorback, or I think it's Razorback is what they're called. These are the helicopters. And we'll also just get the next level, which sort of gives us a loadout. There's another one over here. This looks like an AWAC or an Albatross. Yep, Albatross. And give its loadout as well. Okay, now we're seeing other vehicles moving around, and we just literally just go and paint these while we do this. And if we get SEL, it means it's a SEAL, which is going to be low level, and these will just be guns. There won't be anything tricky there, so I'll leave that one alone, and we'll just keep on getting all of these. At night time, this is the easiest thing to do. Let's just come out of the hangar. Oh, that's a walrus. These are higher level, much harder to kill. And we've still got more. It looks like another Razorback inside the hangar there. So we'll just quickly go and get that. Looks like we've got four vehicles inside the hangar that we have to contend with on that runway in the middle of the island. Razorback and another Razorback there by the looks. So by painting these, it means that in the future we're always going to be able to come back and grab these. Now at night time, this is by far the easiest time to pick up the headlights, so that you can actually just grab all of these different things. We have to kill all of these, or not all of them, but we have to make it so that the island is safe. If we get a walrus, I will come back. The seals I won't worry about. Just keep on going with these. Now we sort of want to do it at night like this to pick up the headlights, but we also want to come around in the daylight. There's another walrus, so I just want to make sure they've only got guns and they don't actually have any sort of anti-air missiles or anything like that. Actually, I missed the other one. So I'm just going to take this one here. You can see we're 3 kilometres away from this one. It's a seal. Just get this one painted to see what sort of weaponry it has on board. Very important that we do this. Now if I press tab, I then get an indication of the actual island itself. There we go, it's just only got a gun. I'm thinking we're only going to have guns on each of these. So I just need to really paint what type of vehicle they actually are. Another walrus. Over here. Now that flashing thing that you're seeing off to the left there is the main objective. It's just a seal. Sometimes there's turrets in amongst this. I'll just have a quick look around. We might look at that in daylight, I think. Just zoom out, see if there's any others. Nothing much there. Okay, any other lights that you can see on the ground? There will be. They're all down in here. This makes the next phase so much easier. And the seal. Walruses are difficult for us to take on. The seal. There's a heap up in here. And so we're looking at, these are 2.5 kilometres away as we do this. So our fuel is on the right hand side. It's not the seal. The hit points, if we start to take damage, is also on the side there. Generally if they fire a missile, it's game over for this particular drone. We can't really afford to be losing these. Just go to the next one. All we want to do is just paint them. Alright, another seal. It's so much easier doing this at night time. But the one thing we do miss is any turrets because they don't have lights. The seal, we've done that one. I'll just zoom back out again, have a bit of a look around. There we go, we've got one down there that we missed. Also during the daylight, once you've actually got them painted, it's useful to sort of see if there's any roads that they tend to go on a lot. So we're just circling the island. We've got a heap over here that we can catch. And so when you're at the vehicle stations, this is a very, very important job to make sure that you're not close enough to trigger the aircraft inside. You want to stay a fair distance away. If you're getting too close, like within a kilometre or so, you're in a lot of trouble. There's a seal. And off to the top right there as well. Now it looks like a bit of a choke point through that lava there. So that's a possibility to sort of get multiple hits if we need to. I'm going to use the main gun. I'll try to leave it back. Actually, that one was captured. Zoom back out again and just see if we can see any other lights. Now it looks like it's the pre-dawn now. We're starting to sort of pick up the shape of the island. But that was good. We did a lot there. So we've got most of them now painted. The fuel we've only used like what's that, a quarter of the fuel so far. And we've got a lot of information now about the actual island itself. Now we just want to wait for morning. What I'll show you is I'll just press escape and then escape again, and so this thing is actually doing this loop, and it's not quite conforming to what it is, but we've now got like a lot of information about that particular location. Let's have a look over here again now. Oh gee, we're going to have to stop our ship. We're heading right in. I should have actually been looking at that. This is the ship in through this site, so it's actually in 3D. Okay, time to slow the ship right down until we sort of find out what we need. So we'll now come across to the helm, and we're just going to use the S key and we'll just shut it right down at this point in time. And so the island is now right ahead of us. To find out how far away it is, we can use this station here, the viewing scope, and press R to take manual control. And we can now see all these painted units. They've all been painted by that other craft. And how far away is the island? 4 kilometres. It's about 4 kilometres, 3 or 4 kilometres. We want to get to within about 1.5 kilometres, or actually maybe not, with the maybe to about 2 kilometres with the because they've got the airfield, and we want to take those guys out before we do too much. All right, so that's great, isn't it? So we've got that, still got that craft sort of flying around, and we're just going to go back into there, and we're just going to keep on having a bit of a look. So again, I just click on this one here and go back to camera mode and just see if there's anything that we missed. Now, just press number 2 again, get the gimbal camera, press R, so I've now got control of it again, and just zoom in and have a look for any lights before dawn hits. So they've all been targeted. Now, if I trigger the launch, is there anything over there? It's just lava, I think. If I trigger these guys to launch, they'll then come after me with their missiles and things. So we'll set up ready for that as well. Maybe in the next episode, actually, I might just go through with the setting up for the attack, how we're going to then go and do it. It's sort of a bit of a puzzle. Like, you can sort of start to sort of see that there's a lot of congestion back over there. That's our carrier, way back out over there. So we're heading in towards where there's a lot of vehicles that all sort of congregate in around this area of the map, which is a bit of an opportunity for us. There's an outcrop in through this side of the map, which we'll see when it gets lighter, that we may sort of have to then go and deal with. I don't think we're seeing much else here. I'm having a look through all of the locations where there's any sort of anything I can see where there's buildings, just in case there's any turrets anywhere. Can't see any. Turrets can be a bit of a problem for us if we miss any. Could be around. That's the objective right there. I'm not seeing turrets there at all. Towards water, and it's not out that side. Just scan across. As much else that way as well. I think our job is done here, so we don't need to keep this one flying around. It's really just for scouting, and we've now done the scouting. So we will, I'll leave it there. I'm pretty confident that we've got everything. It's the only real building on the island. The light is now starting to show up. Let's just zoom out and have a bit of a look. So we're now in the pre-dawn. And there's the aircraft carrier back out through there. There's our start island back out that side. So anything that's ours has got this X on it, like any of our ships. The one at the back there is the barge. So that's the barge at the back. There's the start island over there. All right. Well, I think that's done. I'm surprised there's no turrets. I thought there'd be turrets. So they're a difficult prospect for us to take out. Well, time to get our bird back home. So what we'll do is just press escape till you got it in through this side. Now, the carrier is very, very close. What I don't want to be doing is telling it to go home when it's on the other side of the island. But when it's on this side, I can just tell it to go back this way. I'm just going to get it to go out away from this location first. This is now going down, because I've now gone in and done something different. It's now going to be reducing its height. So if I go back to camera mode, we should see how it's actually, the height is now coming down. So I've got to be careful, because if I'm down low like this and I'm near the island, I will then trigger them. So we're getting down to 400. Let's just press escape, and we'll then just tell it to go back. Just press escape again, and then just come back into the actual, and we'll land on the carrier. And that's all we do, is just drag those waypoints around, and that's done. It's done its job. Now, we might wait for that to come in. So if we have a look at at what it does, the process that it goes through is it will now start to move. It's moved away from the island, and it will be landing at the back of the aircraft carrier. It's going to come in nice and low, and it will first of all hook into this holding pattern in the top through here. So it'll hook into the holding pattern, then slow right down, and then come in and land on the actual deck of the aircraft carrier. Again, if you're in heavy seas, you can lose vehicles, so we do have to be a little bit careful through this one here. And this one, if we just have a bit of a look at this guy, you can sort of see that Fuel is at 53%. That's fine. We do have to manage that. And if we have a look up through here again, eventually as he comes back in, he may do a circle of us. I don't think he'll be able to come straight in. Everything else is looking good. I'm just looking down the bottom here. There he is. He's coming in. When it's red, it means he's coming in for the approach. So we can actually watch this. Let's just go and do it in a screaming rush with this. Here he comes. So over these waves. We're almost in a position that'll take this thing on. And now we've got a lot of information about the actual island, and I'll show you that before we get going. But then in the next episode, we'll start to do the attacks. In we come. Beautiful. All right. Good work. Good work. So he's now done the job of scouting the actual island. He will then get sent back down underneath. We'll see this one flashing as he goes back. Eventually he'll then sort of show up over this side as well, and so it's flashing in through this side. If we go and click on it, there's nothing we can do because it's actually not back in its dock yet, but it will then be reversed back up the runway, back onto the elevator, and then back down underneath and into its own little slot. Right, the objective is that we now need to go, and we now see a lot of information about the actual island. And that's the objective there. There is actually other buildings which I didn't see. I'm a little bit concerned about that. Now this is by far the easiest way for us to go and take the objective, is to go this side of the island. Is there any benefit? The only benefit of really going the other side would be to take out the hangars that are over here. But I think I can also see them from back over this side. So I think we might come over this way. Now what we can do in this location is just plan exactly where we're going to go. And so if I just go to the edge of the island, which is where vehicles may get to, I'm just going to press the E and just go out and just sort of see how far out 1.5 kilometers is. So it's out here on the edge of the green. Well, in fact, that's a kilometer there that we can sort of see. So we can sort of gauge that we have to be out about here. So if we move our ship out to there, that should give us a pretty good field of fire back in through here, and potentially at that one through there. But I'll do that in the next episode. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you then.